We are not the first to talk about this next car, and
Nope.
we will not be the last.
Nope. So, Ferrari's got a new car. I've heard a lot more about this new Ferrari than I've heard about a new Ferrari in a very long time.
That is true.
I've seen headlines of this vehicle. I think
Everywhere.
the 458 Italia might be the last time I heard about a new Ferrari this much. Maybe not even then. Maybe the Enzo was the last time this car was everywhere that I looked. Not for a good reason, I would say.
No, it's the only time I can think of where something has gotten a universal response.
Yeah, this car is not polarizing, because polarizing implies
assumes two sides.
Everyone's pretty much on the same page.
Including, from what I understand, people inside Ferrari.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure they are magnitudes more upset than
Did
we
you
are.
see MKBHD on the Waveform podcast talk about it? How people?
No, not the podcast.
Yeah. So they addressed it, and of course, all the top comments are like, Marquez is really trying not to spoil his relationship with Ferrari, because the other people on the podcast were like, look at this thing, and he's like, well,
He's always been a little more grounded, though.
he has
with his reviews.
He's less
Emotional.
he's less prone to hyperbole, and I don't hold that against him. And if he wants to try to maintain a working relationship with Ferrari, that's a difficult thing to do because they're very particular.
Yeah.
And if I were in his shoes, I might be more pragmatic about it and go like, all right, let's try to find the it's fun and it's interesting and it gets the clicks to dog on it, but let's find some things that we actually appreciated about this design. And that makes sense for someone in his shoes. And actually, I appreciate the refreshing perspective that's not just dogging on it. I will say, though, that he did mention that he got to drive it, and he's one of the only people that got to drive it. But when he got to drive it, he also, right after that, went to an F1 event, and he filmed some videos with Lewis Hamilton and a handful of other people, and everyone on the Ferrari team was like, what'd you think? Like, they were all very... So, and like the things he would, he said that like the drive was, fantastic. Like it had driving characteristics he wasn't expecting, and then everyone's faces would light up and be like, yeah, like talk positive, please talk positive about it. Do you know that this thing has 3 motors per wheel?
No.
Yeah, that's one of the things that that has just been lost in the noise. A lot of the engineering behind this is actually really wild, really cool, but you can't get past the way it looks. It has, each wheel can be steered independently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, each wheel has independent motors for driving, and it was steering, driving, and suspension. So the motors are sort of like the Porsche adaptive suspension. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's sorry if I'm getting that wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's 1 motor for suspension, 1 motor for steering, and 1 motor for driving the wheels at each corner. And they are more powerful or more power dense by double-digit percentage points than Lucid's motors.
Wow. And that's kind of the benchmark.
Yeah, you could fit 2 Lucid motors in a carry-on.
Yeah.
And these things are more power dense than that. It is a crazy piece of engineering. And I don't know why they hired the design team that they hired, or why they decided to make it 5 seats, or why they decided to make it 4 doors. They made a transportation device. Ferrari has never done that before.
Yeah.
They have never made a transportation device. They have never made a tool to solve a problem. They have made pieces of moving art.
Yep. If you don't know, this is the Ferrari Luce, and it's a $600,000.
There is 0 chance someone makes it to the Bose Bros podcast and doesn't know.
$600,000 Ferrari EV. Their first EV, their first 5-seater, only their second 4-door vehicle. There was the Parasangue, but that was only a 4-seater. There's been a lot of opinions about this vehicle. And for a company that doesn't really rely on practicality, this is kind of a surprising move. But at the same time, since it is an EV, it costs basically nothing from an efficiency or performance perspective to add doors and seats. It really doesn't hurt it other than the way it looks, which I think they maybe didn't account for. Who knows? The design is a major departure from traditional Ferraris. Yeah, it doesn't get any better in the back.
No.
It's quad motor, but it sounds like there's multiple motors per wheel. It's got over 1,000 horsepower, and that's split about 25% to the front, 75% to the rear. 0 to 60 time in 2.5 seconds, top speed of 193. Honestly, that's pretty impressive. Does that make this the fastest EV? 193?
I think is over 200.
Okay, but it's up there. This is, for a car that looks like that, it's especially surprising. It's 800 volt architecture, DC fast charging up to 350 kilowatts, and 311 miles of range. I mean, it's impressive figures.
Yeah, for a battery that size, it's actually not that. You think the battery size that it has, which I think is 120 kilowatts, well,
Kilowatt hours?
yeah, like 120 kilowatt hours, I think is what it was. But for 120 kilowatt hours, and all of the effort they put in clearly to make this an efficient bubble-looking car, you would expect more range out of that. Because the Model 3 can do that with a battery pack 30% smaller.
I wonder if a big part of that's the tires.
Oh, could be, yeah. Because, rolling resistance is sort of opposite.
Biggest hit to efficiency on a Lucid is the rolling resistance. More than aerodynamics at normal speeds, it's actually the rolling resistance. And this, I imagine, they would want to fit with more performance-oriented tires, being a Ferrari. So I imagine the tires probably eat up a lot of that. I think Marquez said it best, actually. He said, the qualities of a good EV and the qualities of a good Ferrari don't really intersect anywhere. So trying to make a Ferrari EV, it's a tough thing to do. Styling is odd. What they tried to do with the Mach-E, and they tried to do it here, but it really doesn't work very well, is they used black trim on the top and at the bottom to kind of squish the car's profile and make it look shorter than it is. If the whole thing was body color, it would certainly look much taller. So I guess it helps. Like maybe it does work a little bit.
You ever write a paper for college and you trim you made the margins just a little bit bigger so that your paper looked like it was an extra page or whatever? That's what the Mach-E did. And then this is the kid who's like just discovered this for the first time and made their margins super big. And there's just like a little strip in the middle of actual meat.
Yeah.
That's what this looks like.
I have kind of a controversial take. I actually don't mind the look. I don't think it's ugly. I think it's an EV and it adheres to your stereotypical EV proportions. But for an EV, I don't mind it at all.
You're in the same boat as a lot of people. If this had a Honda badge, no one would care.
That's the thing, is you start moving the Ferrari badge in front of it, it then starts to become ugly. But you take the Ferrari badge off, and yeah.
That is a somewhat interesting looking EV.
Sure. Yeah.
I will say, this is where they won. That steering wheel, so cool. I love the tiny 3-spoke.
As you mentioned, the creative collective founded by Johnny Ive, a former senior Apple designer, his design house helped design the car's interior and exterior. Say what you will about the exterior. I think if you're going to have an EV, this is probably the most well done as far as combining modern technology with the need for human tactility and interaction. I have no notes. I think this is perfect. Now, again, I would prefer out the gate something simpler, but if you're going to have all of these features, these very firm digital switches, knob at the top that you pull down to engage like launch control, the screen that you can turn with the handle, these mechanical switches that go up and down that correlate with things on the screen. I think it's great. I think it's a great interior as far as like combining technology with human interaction. Like I get in some modern cars and I'm like, this was not designed for a human being, and yeah, you can call me a boomer and whatever. And that's probably true to an extent, but like genuinely having to go into the screen to move my vents or open my glove box, you cannot tell me that is the ideal way to do that. I have no notes on the interior. I think the interior is great for what it's trying to do.
Sketch Monkey said it well when he said that this is not car design, this is product design. And product designers don't make good car designers.
They're different disciplines, for sure.
Don't necessarily make good car designers.
But I think the interior, which is inherently more practical, it's what you actually interact with. That's where a product designer would actually be able to contribute something, I think. Whereas like designing the exterior, maybe not so much. But I love all these tactile buttons and switches and knobs and
how the Ferrari key is see-through. So when you put it here, it glows. And when you push it down, the glow moves to here.
Like being able to grab the handle and move it. Like I can picture in my mind exactly what those switches feel like. The cold, metal, crisp, like flicking and stuff.
Or in our case, finger scalding hot.
If you live here in Arizona, yeah, that. Although I have a doubts that someone who spent $600,000 on the car wouldn't have a garage, but
wherever they go park is probably going to be outside at some point.
Yeah,
the mall isn't in their garage.
I don't know you would drive this to the mall.
Not for $640,000. Nothing this offers justifies the price, because it used to be you would pay that much for a Ferrari because it's desirable. If you have eyeballs, this is not desirable.
Do you think it is even possible for Ferrari to make a good EV that is also represents the Ferrari brand well?
Yes.
Is it possible?
Yes.
It would be more like the Rimac Nevera, though, and less like a Model Y.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ferrari's never made a Model Y. Ferrari's never made a transportation device. They've always made special cars. Even their 2x2s, even the ones that Enzo would be driven around in, because he would have a chauffeur, and he never bought the sports cars. He bought the 2x2s that he could sit in the back of and have someone drive him because they were comfortable and quiet, and he liked them. Mm-hmm. Even if it was gas engine, this wouldn't go over well.
It would be worse. Maybe one day when the battery technology is just that good, where you really can shape a car anyway, and it would still have an acceptable range and performance. Mm-hmm. Maybe at that point. I will say Nissan, in a rare Nissan W, probably had the best take.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw this on their socials.
I heard about it, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing. Even the color.
It's really funny.
Like, look at the little kick up here. The black plastic diaper that all these cars have going up in the back. The black, I mean, you know what's really sad? The Nissan is better looking.
I like the Ferrari a lot more, personally.
The Nissan has more to it. Well, I shouldn't say it's better looking. It's more interesting to look at.
This I would accept as just a practical mode of transportation. Mm-hmm. And I would accept this as a practical mode of transportation. Just on looks. Like if this is what it has to look like to be practical and get me around, sure. I don't really visually accept this as a Ferrari.
No.
That's what's holding me up.
No, but yeah, it's really funny how similar they look in profile.
It's very funny.
They're both 5-seat mid-size SUVs. We haven't even talked about how heavy the thing is. It's incredibly heavy.
How heavy is it?
It's around 5,000 pounds.
Oh, it's not as bad as I thought.
5,000 pounds, Mason.
The Charger's 6,000 pounds.
5,000 pounds for a Ferrari seems stupid.